Okay, to finish this rigging section, what I'll do is I'll do a character in front of you so that you can see the basic process of creating a skeleton for a character. And to do that, I'll just import the I exported as an OBJ the Mudbox default human. So if you go to Mudbox and you create a primitive, a human primitive, that's what you get. So that's what I'm going to use for this example. So when you start from a mesh, basically what I do is I go into the object properties for that mesh. I turn on see-through, I turn on backface skull, and I freeze it and click OK. So now if I try to select it, I'm not able to select it. It's going to be much easier to start to put a skeleton structure into this. Also, it's always good to go into orthographic view rather than rather than perspective view, so you can get a better understanding of the geometry itself. And it's a question of preference, but I prefer to go in orthographic, better representation. Okay, now we're ready to start creating the skeleton. Go into the helpers and cat object. I'm going to create a cat parent. That cat parent, I want to make sure that it's right at the origin, so I'm going to make it 0, 0, 0. We're going to want to adjust the scaling of this so that it fits. Whoops, sorry about that. Not about, I don't care about the about. Here we go. So I'm placing it so that the feet fits pretty much like that. I'm going to maybe move it a bit forward like so. And it's right there. That's pretty good. Okay, so we're good with that. So we're ready to start rigging. So I'm going to go inside of the tool here, modify panel, create pelvis, creates our pelvis. I'm going to bring that up like so, rotate it a bit because this character is a bit at an angle like that, maybe a bit lower like so. So we got the basic pelvis. We want the leg to start from here, so that's good. We don't have to scale it that much. I'm going to add a leg to start with. And what I want to do, I can start with the knee here, but I'll start with the ankle. I'll just set up the ankle the way that I like it. So I'm going to rotate it like so, and just place it, pretty much where the feet's supposed to be. So rotate that a little bit, and move it in place like that. Maybe a bit more forward, like so, something like that. And I can increase the length of it so that it fits a bit more with the length of the feet, feet. And then I can add a digit. I'm just going to put one of them. I don't need 5 here. So if I want to, if I did see the toes, I could have 5. So I'm just going to put 1. And if I grab that 1 here, I can define its length to be a bit longer, maybe a bit wider, like that. And there we go. We got pretty much the feet set up. It fits with the feet's position. Of course, it's done a bit rough, but it's just to give you an idea. Then I can grab the knee here, and I can move it in place like that. And I can grab the leg and place it where I want that to be. I need to have a little bit of angle here to make sure that the initial angle for the IK chain is good. And that's pretty much it. So we're good with that. Maybe move a bit to the side like that, and we're good for the first leg. As we know, we took the time to do the first leg, so I can grab the pelvis and add another leg, and it's all going to fall into position right away. So I'm ready to do the spine. Grab this, add a spine. I'm going to grab the torso cage here and bring it to the position. As you can see here, the shape is not exactly what I want, so I'm going to move it a bit more like that, like so. And I can go into the spine setup itself and adjust it with the curve here. So as I adjust it here, you'll see that I'm able to go and follow a bit more. So like that, and maybe move it a bit backward like that, and move the rib cage like so, and rotate it a little bit more like that, and the rib cage will be good for this one. So I can move it a bit down like so. I'm ready to go for the next. I'm going to add another spine. Spine is very long, so I'm going to reduce the size of it. So I'm going to grab that spine here. That's going to be my neck, so call it neck. Number of bones, I just need 3. I'm going to bring the head a bit lower. Usually you place the head right under the ear here, so like something like that, like so. Of course, the bones are extremely big, so I'm just going to go and define the size a bit smaller. And that head here is still a bit big, so I'm just going to reduce that, maybe increase the height. And since I want to fit with the shape of the geometry here, I'll just add an X-form modifier. And I'll grab the gizmo, and I'll just place it with the X-form modifier like that. And maybe scale it a little. It's not going to affect the way that the head is being animated, but at least move that up like that, and I can spend a bit more time adjusting it if I wanted to, but that's going to be it for now, and I'm happy with that. So now we've got our head. We're ready to start with the I'm just going to remove the grid here because it's kind of annoying to have that grid popping up all the time. So we are ready to start the arms. I'm going to create a first arm, the one on the right here. I want to bring the clavicle here forward, so I'm going to bring that up here kind of close to the skin like that. I'm going to bring that shoulder where it's supposed to be, oops, like so. Bring that hand where it's supposed to be, so rotate it in the proper direction and then move it down. That here we're going to bring it to the proper position like so. And again, like I said, is that if we spend the time to do the first arm correctly, the second arm will be pretty easy to do as well. So maybe I could rotate this one a bit like that. Move the hand forward. Rotate it. And here we go, it's pretty much in position. This here could be reduced in size a bit. Maybe in width, it's going to be less offensive to look at. Alright, like so. And I'm ready to just rotate it a bit like so and create the number of fingers. We've got 5 fingers, so I'm going to say 5. It's going to create those 5 fingers, and I can go and place them in position correctly. Like that. So I'm going to curl that a bit, curl that one a bit. They're probably a bit too long, but you get the idea. Like so. It's a bit too long here, so I'm going to reduce the length a bit. This one as well. Rotate it. And this one here is kind of and place it in position like that. Oops. If I grab this here and I go into the link info, I can turn off manipulation effects neighbor hierarchy, so I can place all of the finger here. Same thing with that one. Oops. It's per bone, so I'm just gonna have to turn it off again. Grab this one here, turn it off. Oops. Like so. And grab this one here, turn it off as well, and just place it. And if I like this, I can go back to the grab the group node for this, copy this, and paste it to that one, paste it on the same side, paste this curl on the same side, paste this one on the same side, and then I can start readjusting a bit more to fit the finger. And of course, you know, the fingers can take a bit of time, so you want to, you know, do it correctly. Like that. Anyway, so that's pretty much the idea. And bring the thumb here. I'm gonna go back to the link info, turn off manipulation. So grab that, bring this here, rotate it a bit in local mode. It's gonna be easier. Place it like that. Increase the length a bit more here, length. And here we go, we got our first end set up. So if I grab any bone in the arm now, I'm ready. I could copy it on the other side, or I can just grab the rib and say add arm. Oops, undo that. Add arm, and it's gonna create the second arm. So that's pretty much how you would create the basic rig for this character. Now it's ready to be skinned. If I want to try that, of course, you know, the result may not be great to start with, but if I unfreeze all, I'll be able to grab this guy. I'm going to be able to add the skin modifier to it. And the skin all of the bones of cats are set up as being bones, so I can go into the bones here. Before I do that, I'm going to go at the bottom where it says advanced parameters and make sure that weight all vertices is on, and it's right here. So weight all vertices is set to on. And when this is on, I can go into add bones. Going to bring all of the bones. I'm ready to grab the character. You don't need the character 01 here. Character 01 is that gizmo at the bottom. So you grab everything else, select, and now we've got the skin mesh. So if I grab the character itself, it's going to go in perspective now. And if I grab the bone, And if I go to the motion panel, I'll just create an animation layer so I'm not messing up my pose. And now you're ready to start moving your character around. So if I move the pelvis and rotate it, you'll see that we get the whole deformation and all. If I move the head, you'll see that we get the head deformation. And of course, if I wanted to have a better skin here, I would spend more time doing the skin. But you get errors over there and things like that, but that's pretty much how it goes. So in the next video we're going to start learning how to animate with CAD, and I just wanted to give you an idea of this process here, how to set up a character and skin it. And of course, spend more time skinning, and skinning could be a bit time consuming, so that's not the purpose of this set of videos. Alright, so thank you for taking an interest into CAD. I think it's something that you're going to really like, and we're going to cover in these sets of videos a lot from CAD, so that you know how to start up with the tool. So the first time you're going to install CAD, you're going to have a menu at the top here called CAD that is going to appear, and you'll see that you got a couple of tools in there, and those are advanced tools. So we're not going to talk about them today. Maybe later I'll do some tips and tricks on those specific tools, but right now we don't have to use them. They're quite advanced, and I'm just going to let them there for now. The whole magic of CAD happens here. So if you go into the Create panel and you go to the Helpers, you change standard category here to CAD objects, and you've got the 3 types of object that you can add from CAD. So you got the CAD parent, the muscle strand, and the CAD muscle. And we're going to talk about all of them in this session. But first of all, we're going to talk about the CAD parent, which is the core of the CAD animation system. So when you click on CAD parent, you'll see that we've got a couple of options there. But basically, when you create a CAD parent, you're creating a kind of the basic, I would not call that the root node, because it's not exactly a root node, but it's the parent of the whole characters, the character set if you want, and you can create any type of rig that you've got here. And all of the rigs that are listed here, except from the dwarf one here that I created myself as a test, you've got all of these available that come with CAD for free when you start and you install it for the first time. So if I want to create a horse, for example, I'm just going to click on horse, and as soon as I'm going to drag into the viewport, you'll see that I've got a horse rig. So this is the bone set that I need to animate a horse. If I want to delete the character, I just need to select this root node here. I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to create a CAD parent here, and I'm going to just select here in the CAD rig. I'm just going to select none, and when I click on none, you'll see that what I'm doing is I'm just creating the CAD parent itself. So now what I can do when I've got a CAD parent inside of the scene, I can go to the modifier stack, and I have access to some of the tools that CAD offers. I'm going to move that here. I'm just going to place it at the center of the universe here, like that. And I'm just going to maximize the viewport so we can see. So we got a CAD parent. We don't have any type of rig inside of on top of this CAD parent yet. So we can define now that we want to create. Oops. I'm just going to move down here. If I want to create that horse again, I can go here and say horse. I want to create that, or I can create a panther. I can create what I really like to show is the centipede. I'm double click on the centipede here, and I got a centipede. So you see that these CAD parents can be used to create all sorts of characters. I'm going to move this aside, and I'm going to create a new CAD parent, like so. Go to the modifier stack, and I'm just going to add a clown, which is a character that I really like. So though all of these rigs are available, and you can set them up, and we're going to see how to create your own rig and save them a bit later in this presentation. But that's the basic of how you can create a CAD rig or CAD preset from the menu. And when you're going to create your own preset, it's going to be exactly the same workflow. And actually, I did the preset as a test, like I said. So I'm just going to go back here to the Create panel. I'm going to go in CAD parent, and I've done this thing here called the dwarf, and it was just a test that I did. So if I select this and create my rig, you'll see that this is just a basic character that I've done a bit before, prior to doing these videos. And it's as easy as that. You can have your own character rig loaded inside of CAD. And what's great about CAD as well, and I'm going to see that a bit later, is that you can also save the skin mesh as part of the rig. So if you create a rig from the CAD parent, you can have a skin mesh already inside of the rig as well, which is kind of very powerful for animation pipelines. So I'm just going to delete all of that, and we're going to start again. I'm just going to load a basic character that I'm going to place at the center of the universe, and I'm just going to click none, create this character here, go back, and I'm just going to create I'm going to use the clown. I really like the clown. So we've got the cat tools, and the way you create cat, the way you work with cat is you've got the modifier stack where you can find a couple of tools that are going to be used in setup, and you got the motion panel that allows you to go and create layers and start animating with the layer manager. So you see that there's a big red button here. That means that when it's red, we are in setup mode. Setup mode is, if you've played with biped a bit before, it's kind of the figure mode. It's an unanimated mode that's going to be that's going to be used as your reference pose or your figure pose if you want, and that's how you set up your rig and how you set up your character, and that's the pose or the setup that you're going to skin to, and then you're going to start animating, and those animation will be done on top of the pose, and you can go back to the pose whenever whenever you want. So right now we are in setup mode, and that's very important when you're not animating to be in setup mode, and as soon as you start to animate, to at least work with animation. If I press this button, I'm not able to go into animation mode. And the reason is that I have no layers, and I'm going to talk about animating a bit later. But if I want to go into animation mode, you see where it says available. I'm just going to click on that, and you've got all sorts of layers we're going to talk about a bit later. So if I go here in absolute layer, you'll see that now I can click on this and I can go in animation mode. So now I'm in animation mode, and if I go in auto key and if I grab this hand here, I'm just going to go at frame 30, move it up like that, rotate it. Hey, how are you? And I've got an animation here, and it's on that layer. If I go back to the setup modes, you see that we're going in, even if we've got an animation here on that layer, we're still back in the setup mode. And the setup mode, like I said, is used for rigging, and as soon as you start animating, got to turn this on, and start animating with it. All right, so you understand the idea behind setup mode and animation. And I'm going to show you the idea for cat, and it's a bit like biped, and that's what I really like about it, is that if you grab the actual hand, you see that I can move it around. It's a full IK setup, and I can do some squash and stretch as well. But I can also grab a bone and I can rotate it, and you'll see that it's a full FK as well. And you've got some tools for retargeting the IK and all of that, and we're going to cover all of this during the presentation. But the idea here is that it's a fully squash and stretch. Sorry, no, not squash, but it's just a stretching IK rig that you can do pretty much anything you want with it. Oop, small script error here. That's fine. And I'm just going to move around. I'm just going to move to another video. I'm going to start rigging from scratch from a completely new rig, a new cat parent. We're going to create our own rig. Okay, now let's take a look at how we can create a rig from scratch using cat. So I'll do the same thing as I did before. I'll go in the create panel, go into the helpers, cat object, and I'll create a cat parent, and I'll make sure that I select none in the cat rig here. So I'll just create it over there. Usually when you create a new character, you try to place at the center of the universe. So I'll just right click on the move tool, and I'll just right click here on the X, Y, and Z axis to make sure that it's sort of right there at the center of the universe. You'll see that if I go to the modifier stack, you see that we've got character 01, that's the name of this guy here, and you see that here in the cat rig parameters, I've got a name for the rig. The name itself is used to, and you'll see as we start to build this rig, there's a naming, automatic naming process happening while you create your rig. So what you want to do here is you want to create, you want to provide it with a name, and this name will be provided to the rest of the bones that you'll be created. And you'll see that it's pretty nice the way that it automatically renames all the bones in your rig. So I'll call that my first rig, and actually, you know what? If I want to, I'm just going to call that my F1 rig. And I'll just put underscore here because I want that underscore to separate the name of the rig. I'll press enter, and you'll see that now everything, all the bones that I'll be creating on that rig will have that prefix added to them. There's a concept that's very important here. It's the cat unit scale. Basically, the cat unit scale is how big this. Oops, I'm just going to scroll it up and down. How big this parent is, and it's kind of a multiplier of everything inside of the rig. So it's kind of a good way to rescale the rig, but you have to be careful because the unit scale here are affecting only the bones of the rig. So if you have skin mesh or things like that, or extra bones inside of your scene added to the rig, you need to make sure that you instead of using this unit scale here, there's a tool called the rig resizer, and I'm going to probably have a tip and trick only on that a bit later, but if you need to resize a rig, use the rig resizer, which is pretty simple to use instead of the unit size. So basically, this multiplier multiplies the length of every bone in your scene. So if you put it to 1, that's kind of giving you the same thing as a max bone. Every max bone doesn't have a length multiplier, so it's basically when you create the bone, it has a certain length and it's a scale 1. But if you want to have the same behavior as the max bone with the scaling, you just set it to 1. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it to the about right there. And basically, what you want to do is I try to scale the unit scale here to fit so that the 2 feet of the character that I want to skin or rig are standing in this space here or in this space there. It gives you a sense of proportion of how big this is going to be. Couple of things before we start. You see that here there's a bone length axis. If I just create a bone, it's probably gonna be better if we give you this. If I go into bone creation mode, it'll just create a bone inside a max here, like so. You'll see that if I go in local mode, if I grab the bone, whoops, I'm still in bone creation mode. I'm just gonna turn that off. Okay, it's good. If I grab this bone here, if I go in local mode, you'll see that the length here is in the X direction. That's true for the max bone, and that's also true for the biped bone. But in earlier version of CAT and for certain rigs, the length axis was the Z axis. So that's why when you're building a new rig, you have to define: are you using the X axis or the Z axis as the length of the bones? In the case here, we're working with we're just going to use X like biped and the max bone. But if you want to, you can also, if your engine or if you're exporting to any type of other application and you want that to be the Z axis, you can do that. So I'm just going to go back here and say X axis. That's good. And now we can start pretty much creating our first setup for the rig. And you'll see that it's pretty easy. So if I go to the modifier stack here and I select the parent node, or the cat node, sorry, yeah, the cat parent node. What I have here is the ability to create a pelvis or extra parts. We're not going to go in extra parts yet. That's pretty much to complete your rig at the end if you want to add little things to the complete rig, like the skin mesh or things like that. But I'm going to go here and create a pelvis, and that's pretty much the first thing you want to do. That's the center of your character. So I'll just create a pelvis, and it's going to appear right here inside of the scene. You see that from the pelvis, it's called Hub 01. I'm going to rename that pelvis. And if I deselect and reselect, you'll see that automatically renames the pelvis, which is kind of cool. But you'll see that all the bones will also be renamed automatically when you start to add more links or spine or legs or things like that to the rig. So I've got the pelvis done. And from the pelvis, you can see that I can add a leg, I can add an arm, a spine, a tail, an extra bone, or add more rigging to it. And we're going to use all of these tools from to build our rig. But we'll start with the legs. And basically, what you want to do before you start adding the leg is you want to place the pelvis where you want it to be. So remember that we are in setup mode. So I'm just going to rotate it a little bit like so, and maybe move it like that, and maybe scale it a little bit. So the scaling will influence where, and I think I moved it in the X-axis, so I'm just going to move it back to the center like that, and here we go. So we got this pelvis, it's right there, and we're ready to start to build from it. So I'm going to add a leg to start with. As soon as you add a leg, you see that it's a full leg, and when you grab any type of bone inside of the rig, you'll see that you can it's going to automatically stretch. So it's very easy if you want to match to a character. It's very easy to move these bones around. So if I move this bone here, it's the beginning of the IK chain. The end of the IK chain is here, and we've got the ankle here, which is after the IK chain, and we've got a helper that allows you to move the feet around like that. So what I'll do here, I'll show you a couple of important things inside of the leg when you create a leg. So I'm going to grab any bone, and if I go to the modifier stack here, you'll see that we've got the leg, the name of the leg, and automatically it renames the bone itself. So if I change the name of the leg here, we got left leg. I could call that left L, I'm going to put enter here, and if I deselect and reselect, you'll see that it has been renamed left L, and I can set up the bone here to change the name. And you see that segments is also for twisty bone. But all of this renaming bone setup, the name of this specific bone is 1, added to the name of the group, which is a limb here called left L. All of this will be added together with the name of the rig and will be the name of that bone. So you see that the name here for the bone is that compilation of all these features, all of these naming sections. You see that this leg here has been set up to be left. We could also set it to middle or right. That's going to be useful when we do copy and paste operation, and also when we do automatic walk cycle with cat motion. So this is going to be important. Right now we're using the left leg. That's kind of cool. And we've got the chain set up. You see that if I move this bone away from the pelvis, there's no bone in between here. If I want a bone in between, I can create a collarbone. And you'll see if I turn on collarbone, you have now a collarbone. What's specific about this collarbone is that it's outside of the IK chain, which means that if I move this around, you'll see that the actual bone moves, but not the IK chain. So if I will move that up, just place it over there. So if I rotate this guy here, you'll see that it brings the IK chain from this point to this point. So that's the collarbone. It's useful for clavicles. If you want to extend the pelvis here and have a bit more movement into that, you can use the collarbone. The ankle, here at the bottom, the ankle is outside of the IK chain. So if I remove the ankle, you'll see that I can still move with this here, but that's now the end of my IK chain. If I turn on the ankle for this, now I've got an object here, which is the ankle, and it's after the IK chain. The ankle, I'm going to come back to the ankle, and actually I want to mention that as I'm thinking about it. I'm just going to go in a wireframe mode, and you see that the ankle here has this little blue dot. And this blue dot, if I go in rotation mode, you'll see that the ankle is rotating around that blue dot. If I want to edit the position of that blue dot, it's kind of the pivot point. I can grab the ankle itself, go to the link info, and actually no, that's not true. If I go back to pivot, actually is it the IK or the link info? Never remember. Or it's the motion panel. Yeah, it's the motion panel. Sorry, I forgot about that. So you go to the motion panel, and here you see selection level, sub-object. If you turn that on, now you're able to move that pivot point and define where it's going to be. Of course, it's going to affect the ankle itself, but you can move it pretty much where you want it to be, and then that's going to be your pivot point for that specific object. So you can change the ankle for that, the angle pivot point, which is kind of cool. If you're doing any type of walk cycle, you'll be able to change that. So we've got our ankle there. We got our bone. That's not very pretty, so I'm just going to make it a bit more like so. And actually, I'm going to remove the collarbone for this here. Remove that and place it like so. And here we go. And as you see that it's really easy to place the character like you want it to like you want it to be. Okay, so now that we're done with the what's before and after the IK chain with the collarbone and the ankle, you can define how much bones you've got in your IK chain. So I can set up to 5 if I want 2, or 6 or 5 or whatever. If you're doing any type of creatures, you can change that. 2 will be good enough for me in this case. So when you're ready to create the second leg, let's say I'm just going to kind of exaggerate this here. I'm going to make 4 as the number of bones. So this is a pretty non-standard leg. If I go back to the pelvis and I add a new leg, you'll see that automatically it's going to create an exact replica of this leg. What I can do as well is if I change this, so if I just go and say, well, I want 2 bones for this, I can copy the setup, can grab this here and say copy this, grab this and say paste opposite, and it's going to do exactly the same thing. Remove the bone and create exactly the same rig for the side here. So when you're setup mode, you can copy, you can paste on the same side, or you can paste opposite, pretty much the same as biped if you're familiar with biped. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pause now and I'm going to create another video to continue from that point. Okay, if you're asking why I'm stopping between videos, I'm trying to get those videos to be about 10-minute maximum long, so that you can easily decide to watch them and stop them and go to, and it's not going to take too much time to download. That's pretty much my idea. So you'll see that every video I make is about 10-minute maximum in length. So what we've done so far, we've defined the rig for the leg, we've defined the number of bone, and I'm just going to delete that leg for now. I don't want to have it to start with. And you notice that if I grab a bone and I delete, it deletes all of the group, all of the limb. And CAD is very well done for that. It knows all the dependencies. So if I grab any bone inside of a group, it knows what to delete, and it doesn't delete the whole rig. If I want to delete the whole rig, I want to grab this parent node and just delete it at that point. Okay, so let's grab this this bone structure again. And we're going to take a look at some of the other features that we have at the bottom there. You see that when I select a bone, I have the settings for the limb here, which is the whole leg, which we saw all of the features. And if I go down, you see that there's a bone set up. This is unique to this bone. So you see that the name of this bone is 1, the name of this bone is 2, and this is the ankle. And we're going to go back to the ankle in a few minutes. But this bone, if we take a look at the name, that's good. And we'll also see that there's a number of segments. So if you're doing any type of twisty bone, if you want to do twisty bone, you can just increase the number of segments here to 3, or I'll make it 4. And you see that now this bone has 4 segments. You can define, the length of the overall segments, and you see that it affects the overall length of the bone. I can define how big I want them to be, the depth, and all of that. But what's good about that as well is that you can define the threshold. I'm just going to move up a bit. So you can define the twist weight, or how much so you can change all of that if you want that to be twisting more from the beginning or at the end, and you can change all of that with the curve here, and the value is how much the twisting is going to happen. Now you'll see that if I grab this bone and I rotate it, you'll see that we get some nice twisting over there. And if I grab the actual twist, you'll see that this is part of bone number 1. This is the segment number 1. So if I grab this here, it's still part of bone number 1, and it's segment number 2. And you see that as I grab them, all of these here are named automatically. If I want to have an underscore here after the 1, I just need to put underscore there and press enter, and I just deselect and reselect. You'll see that now I've got an underscore if I want that to be renamed automatically. So all of these naming things here are very powerful to rename your rig as you build it along. So that's pretty much it. And now in the advanced tips and trick, I'll show you how you can change the look of the mesh by using a custom mesh, which is kind of cool, that you can change the shape as well if you want to. Alright, so that's it for the leg. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab the ankle. The ankle has specific features. You see that it's still part of the leg, but it has a specific set of settings. The reason is that from the toe you want to build digit or toes. So the ankle here, I can turn on a number of digits. If I say we want to have 3 toes, just say 3, and now we've got 3 toes. If I want to have 5, just go 5, and we've got now 5 toes. Just go back to 3. It's going to be nice. Oh, actually, we'll just go back to 5. Here we go. So we got 5 toes now. They're not all of the same length, but that's fine. We can go and change all of that and edit them. So if I grab this toe here, I'll rotate it like that, like so, and this one here, like that. So whoops, should grab the root here, like so, and same thing here, parent, and just orbit it like that. So anyway, so we've got our 5 toes here. When the toes are selected, you can define how much bones you want in that toe. So I'm just going to say 1 for this. Same thing here. I just want to have 1 bone, and you can do that. If you want to have 3 bones, you can have 3 bones if you want to. For toes, usually 1 is good. So I'm just going to say 1. You can define the depth, the width. For all of the bones, you can define all of that. And also you can define the length of the bone itself. The curl weight is going to be very important, because when you're going to be on the palm here and animating, there's a curl setting that you can play with, and the curl will affect the whole all of the toes, and you can then adjust the curl for a single toe as well. But basically, the overall curl, you can adjust the weight of that, how much this toe will be affected by the overall curl. It's kind of a multiplier of that overall curl. So you can define the behavior of the toes by adjusting that curl weight here. So we've got the toes done. I'm not going to spend too much time doing that, so I'm just going to make it 1 bone here, reduce the length a bit, do that here as well. Just 1 bone, reduce the length a bit, and actually this one here I'll just make it. And actually what's good about that as well is that, let's say that I really like the setting for this, I can copy, I can grab the other bone here and say paste, grab this one here, say paste, and it's going to copy all of these settings here the same. So if I go back here and say paste, you'll see that now we have 1 bone. I can increase the length of this bone as well, and we're good to go with this. So that's pretty much the idea for the ankle. Again, you go at the ankle level, you create the number of digits you want, and then all of the digits are here. And if you want to rename the digit, again, you can rename them here. That's digit 1. I can call that, and I have no idea how it's called in English. I'm just going to call it the big one. So that's going to be my big one. And if I deselect and reselect, it's going to automatically be renamed big one, bone number 1. If I add 2 bones, automatically the second bone will be named the big one, second toe, and things like that, and so on and so forth. So we've done the twisting, we've done the ankle, we've got so that's pretty much how we've set up your first leg. Again, I just wanted to show you the concept. I'm not making a pretty rig. We've seen how if I grab the pelvis, if I grab any bone inside of that leg, I can copy and paste opposite. But if I go and grab the pelvis and I create a new leg, it automatically is going to mimic the other leg. If I'm doing a 4-leg creature and I want the 4-leg to be at the pelvis level, it has no sense at all, but I could add another leg if I wanted to, and this leg here I can grab it. Oops, grab this leg, come on, oops, grab this one, and I can place it wherever I want, like so. And I can attach it where I want to, and I can grab this bone here, say copy this setup, grab this and paste it on the same side and move it back, and you'll see that we've got exactly the same setup for this leg as well. So it's very easy to continue to work and build from that once you've done one leg. I'm going to grab this bone here, delete it, and we're going to continue from that very strange, setup. So I'm going to stop for now, and I'm going to go on and show you how to create the spine and the neck in the next video. Okay, we're ready to continue from the pelvis and move up to the neck and actually the spine and the neck. But before I want to move there, I just want to show you a couple of things. So the three bones here, I want to remove that and go back to just one bone for the twisty bone. And I'm just going to do the same thing here on this side. And let's say that actually I'm going to delete this leg here for a second. I'm just going to grab the pelvis, and let's say that you've created your leg setup and you want to move the pelvis. Go back into world manipulation mode, and you're trying to you want to bring your pelvis higher, like so. So the leg is no longer long enough, so I'm going to grab this leg and try to move it down. And you see that as I'm trying to move it down, it stretches the leg, and that's the kind of the default behavior of a cat, is that when you're moving a bone around, it always stretches the parent to try to match the position that you want to, and that's kind of nice because it's very easy to set up and to create a bone structure for a character by using this method. But now that the leg is not long enough and I want this to go down without stretching, I'm not able to do it by default. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the hierarchy tab. Instead of going to the pivot point, to the pivot manipulation, I'm going to go to link info, and you'll see that here there's an option called manipulation causes stretching. Actually that's in the setup mode because the animation mode is off. So setup mode here, I'm in setup. I'm going to go here and say manipulation causes stretching. I'm going to turn that off, and as this is off now, you see that as I'm moving this bone, or the position of this bone down, it's going to stretch the parent, but it's not going to stretch this one. So again, if I grab this one and I turn it on, you'll see that it's going to stretch that bone. If I turn that off, that bone will not stretch and will just go down. And actually I'm going to place it correctly so that the ankle looks correct, like that. And then I'm going to go back into manipulation causes stretching, and I'm going to place it where I want it to be. So now the leg is long enough. That's just an option here that I want to talk about before continuing, because you can turn it on and off all the time, and it's kind of a very useful feature to know about when you're doing the modeling. Another one that I wanted to talk about is and that's in the setup mode here. You can lock the local position of the object, and as you saw there, when I'm moving the object around, the parent always try to keep the second bone in the same position. But I can turn that off, and now what's going to happen is that if I move the object around, you see that I can move it pretty much freely from the parent bone. So if you want to do that, you can do it. It's the same thing for location, for rotation and scale. So I'm going to go back to lock position, and you see that now the parent follows and try to keep the child here in the same position, and always try to keep that this way. So that's just a quick parenthesis there. Okay, so we're ready to continue. So I kind of don't like this leg, so I'm going to go back here. I'm going to create a new leg like that, and we're going to go from there. So I'm going to move that aside like that a bit, maybe front like so. Create another leg that matches this, and we're ready to continue for our rig. So now that I grab the pelvis, you see that I can add spine, I can add arm, tail, and all of the others. What I'm interested now is creating a spine. So I'm going to go here and say add spine. The number of bones of the spine, I just need to grab one of the bone. You'll see that we've got the bone set up and the spine set up. So in the spine, I can define how many bones I want. Let's say that I want to have 8 bones. Now it's going to create 8 bones. The way to define the length and the curvature of the spine, the overall in the spine setup, if you go into the length here, you can define it to be longer or shorter. Of course, you can define the overall size of the bone, and you can define the name, and you see that here automatically the bones are named after that name here, so that's kind of cool. And we're going to need to change that when we're going to start doing the neck, because we're going to use a spine to do the neck as well. You see that there's a straight line between the pelvis and what we call here the hub, and this is going to be the this is not a pelvis. We want that to be the rib cage. Call that rib cage. And what I mean by a hub is that if I grab this bone here, you see that the bone setup, and if I grab the pelvis, you see that it's kind of a hub where we can start to append new limbs. Same thing here. If I grab this, we have the same exact tool. So a hub is kind of a center point where you can add leg or arm or tail or spine or whatever you want, depending if you're doing a human or creature or things like that. You'll see that now if I move this around, you'll see that the spine will always try to follow this. So you try to place this rib cage at the base of the neck. You can rotate it, and you'll see that the spine will also rotate as well. So you try to place it in the like you want it to be. Rib cage will be like that, and just move it down a little bit, like so. And we've got the rib cage there. The spine has a couple of setups. I talked to you about if you grab the bone themselves, you can define their size. So if you want to adjust the size of the bone, you can. You can also define the length of that bone. Be careful about because you have the length of the actual spine, and you've got the length of the actual bone, which is different. So bone setup, spine setup. If you go into the spine control here, what is very important is that by default all of the spine you'll be created are procedural, which means that if I grab the rib cage here and I move it around, you see that the spine curves automatically. But you can also go and say, I want that to be keyframed. I'm going to turn that on here, and you get this big warning saying, okay, if you're doing this, you're just putting a PRS controller. I don't want to continue. But basically, you can keyframe the spine yourself if you want to. So you remove the procedural animation of this cat rig by adding keyframe animation. And then, if you want to do keyframe, you can add your own. Rig for the spine if you wanted to. But basically, CAD offers you the ability to have a procedural rig, procedural spine, and you can define the curve of how the spine is going to react to the curvature here. So you can redefine all of that. So by adjusting this, you can see that. It's kind of cool because you can really shape up the spine to fit with your model. And then after that, when you got that spine set up and how it behaves, you can see that by just moving this around, the spine is going to automatically try to make a nice curve between the pelvis and the rib cage there. A lot of people will, you've got the rib cage at the top there, and if I go into the wireframe mode, you see that where it ends, and they want to move it higher or lower, but it brings the spine with it. So a trick that the creator of CAD gave me, Phil, is that if you want to move the rib cage and you're not happy with where the position is, what you can do is you can add an X-form modifier on top. And you grab the gizmo and then you can place it where you want to be. This will not affect the pivot point of the rib cage. It's going to still behave correctly, but you can at least visually place it wherever you want it to be. So what's important to know is that if I grab the object itself and I scale it, it's going to affect the position of the clavicle when it's going to attach to it. But if I go in and I use the gizmo, it's not going to affect the position of the clavicle. So that's a difference between the two setups. I'm going to turn off the X-form here, leave it where it's supposed to be, scale it up, and just define the rib cage like that. And go in local mode and just scale it up. That's going to be my rib cage here. From the rib cage, you can create, if you go to the modifier stack, from the rib cage, you can create other type of objects. Again, you can create a leg. Not if you wanted to do a cat or a dog or any type of creature that has 4 legs, that's where you would create the leg. I can create arm. I can create another spine. And if I want to create a neck, that's where I want to go. I want to create a new spine. Of course, that new spine is going to end up with a named spine. This is not what I want. So the spine set up here, I'm going to call that neck. And automatically, if I deselect and reselect, you see that this is named neck. The last here, I don't want that to be the rib cage, but I'm going to call that head. and now we've got a head. And of course, you know, there's a lot of spine there, so I'm going to go back to something like 3, actually 2 will be good. And then I can define that head, and it's the same exact behavior as before. So I can rotate this and place it like I want it to be for the head. And again, you can change the shape of that. You can make it higher, bigger, and define the height here. And if you're not happy where the head falls, again, go and add an X-form modifier. I'm going to grab the gizmo here, and I'm going to move it up like that, and that's going to be, and I'm going to actually rotate it and place it like that. So now I've got something that looked like a head. Of course, I didn't respect any type of human proportion. That's actually not at all, but that's fine. I mean, we're creating some kind of a creature just to illustrate the concept. Now that I've got a head created, if I go back to the object level, and that's very important if I want to have access to the cat tool, I need to go to the object level. I can add anything I want to this thing here. And there's a tool called add bone. And when you add a bone, it's going to be added anywhere pretty much here at the same location as the head, but then you can place it where you want. So if you want to create a jawbone, for example, let's put it there and add the bone itself. Let's make it a bit bigger, like so, and rotate it like that. Automatically this bone, because we've created from the head itself, if the head moves, you'll see that automatically it's parented to it, and that bone is part of the rig. So if I want to do some kind of jaw, like the pivot point is not in the right place here, so I'm probably going to change the pivot of that bone and just place it about, actually, you know what, I need to go into the link info here. Is that the IK? Actually, it's the motion panel. If I grab this bone, I need to rotate it like that around its pivot point, because cat has a specific set of behavior, and just move it in space. Whoops, move it in place like that. And now what I've got is this bone is now able to do a jawbone with that. And of course, if I do anything on the spine or anything like that, if I just do any type of rotation, the bone will be attached to the head as well, and it's going to be part of the rig. So that's what we mean by add bone. If I grab this, go to the motion panel at the object level, add bone will add any type of bone. And like you saw, you need to place the bone pivot point and orient it in the right direction to have the effect that that you want for that bone here. So I'll move on to the We've done the spine, we've done the neck, we've done the head. Now in the next video we're going to take a look at how we can create arms and ends. Okay, it's not super pretty, but you get the idea, and you can continue from there. Now we're going to take a look at how to create the arms and finish up the rig and save it as a preset. So that's going to be the last part of the rigging section. So we're going to grab the rib cage. This is where we want to create the arms from. So grab it, select it, go to the object level if you have any type of transformation on top of it, and I can go here and say add arm, as simple as that. And now the arm can be edited like anything else in CAD. I'm going to grab the hand here, go into world manipulation, I'm going to bring the hand here. I want the shoulder to be somewhere like that. If you want to do a T-stand pose, I'm going to grab the hand here, rotate it like so, and bring it up like that. Maybe rotate it like that, and bring the shoulder like so. So rotate this one here a bit. Here we go. If I want to create some twisty bones, again, same idea. It's the same exact thing as the leg. It's just that the difference between a leg and an arm is that the IK chains start after the clavicle and end at the palm here. So instead of being an ankle, it's a palm, but the logic is exactly the same. So if you take a look at here, it's still called a collarbone. If I turn that off, it removes the clavicle. If I turn that back on, you see that the clavicle is there. So now I can grab this clavicle and bring it a bit forward. Whoops. Bring this clavicle a bit forward like that, like a regular human being, and just bring the shoulder like that, and define this is where I want that to be started. So now we've got the clavicle, we've got the IK chain that starts here. So if I grab the end like that and move it like so, we're still in setup mode, rotate it a bit like so, and now we've got our setup for the arm. If I want to do some twisty bones, grab the bone here. We're in left arm. We've got 2 bones. If we want to have more, we can add more. but I'm going to go back here. If I want to have some twisty bones, I'm going to say 3, and now we've got 3 twisty bones. I'm going to 5. I can have 5. Depends on what you want to do with your character. On the palm itself, if I grab the palm, you'll see that same thing as the toe, as the ankle for the toes. I can define a number of digits. So if I say 5 here, it's going to create 5 fingers. And again, I can go in and start adjusting one finger here and say, well, I want that length to be a little bit shorter. And I want to copy the settings for this and paste that here and paste that there as well. Did I copy this? So I'm going to copy this and paste it there. Oh, you cannot copy. Well, anyway, so just reduce the length here like so. And again, you can define the curl weight. I'm going to leave it to 1 here because I want the hand to all curl the same way. I can grab this here, say copy, and now I can copy this setup on the second here, and it's going to bring back the, and just bring it back there. Grab the root of this here, the thumb, and make it like so. So now if I now that I've got, and I can, for each of the finger, I can define how many bones. So in this case we've said 3, and again you can rotate them and organize them the way that you want them on your character and try to fit the shape. Once you're done with the actual setup for the hand, you're happy with it, or the whole arm, you just either go into the rib cage itself and say I want to add another arm, and automatically it's going to match the other arm. If I change this, if I grab this and move it up or down to change it dramatically, well, at least so that it's visible, I can copy this, grab any bone in the other group here and say paste, and it's going to paste the whole group structure onto the other group. So that's how you create the, and we're going to see that by defining all of these things in this way, especially on the palm with the digits, you'll be able to create poses for the hand, you'll be able to curl the hand with some sliders and all of that, and it's all provided by CAT automatically in animation mode. So that's kind of pretty useful and pretty cool. So we've got our setup done. It's pretty good. It's not, doesn't look like anything that I know of, but it's you know, we'll live with it. We're happy with it. What you can do still in CAT, and it's you can go at the pelvis, you can add a tail. If I grab the tail itself, because by default it's created in the same direction as the hub itself, so I'm going to grab this here and rotate the tail and bring it back in the back here like so. Actually I don't want to, I'm just going to go back into link, and I don't want to stretch. I'm going to turn that off and just bring this here like so, and bring this one down like that. Alright, so we've got the tail here, so that's something we can do with the bones, with the pelvis, and you know, let's say that we're happy with that. I'm going to go to the root, to the parent node, and when you got the parent node, what you can do here is I'm just going to go and smooth and highlight. You can save this rig, so I'm going to save that and call that area rig. And now we've got area rig inside of our presets. So if I grab this and delete this, and I reset the scene, if I go back to the helpers, and if I go to cat object and cat parent, and I'm going to maximize this here. If I create the parent node, by default it automatically selects my rig, but if I go to the parent node, and if I want to create this, I can say none to start with, or I can say, well, I want to create the area character, area rig, and if I go here and say create, it's going to create my rig automatically. Because we only have a character here and we have no mesh or anything in there, I can go back into the units here, and I can define the units and rescale the whole rig by just playing with the units here. If I had anything else attached to the rig, like the skin mesh or things like that, I would need to go and use the rig resizer inside a CAT to resize that. In this new set of videos, what I want to take a look at is CAT animation, or animating with CAT, and we're going to take a look at pretty much everything you can do with CAT in terms of animation. So I hope you'll have as much fun as I had to discover CAT animation tools. So what I'll do now is I'll go and I'll create a rig. I don't have to go into the details of it. It's in a previous set of videos. I'm going to create a CAT object, and I'm going to go into CAT parent here, and I can use any type of rig that I've done before. I kind of like the clown one, but you can choose any one you want. It's the same workflow for all the rigs that you've created with CAD. So I'm going to use the clown here, drag it into the viewport, and I'm going to put it 0, 0, 0 by just selecting the root node here. And now I'm ready to start animating with with this rig. The whole animation system of CAD resides in the motion panel. So if you click on the motion panel, you'll see that you've got the layer manager, you've got the regular max controller, and you also have the clip manager, which we're going to talk about a bit later in the presentation. So I'm going to maximize this here because at this resolution it's hard to see everything. So I'm just going to maximize, or just what I did is I just dragged on the left side of the command panel here. So if you drag left, it's just going to show you two columns, sorry, of interface instead of just one. So we're ready to go into CAD animation system. So the layer manager is the core of the animation system in CAD. When this button is red here, what's important to note is that you are in setup mode. In the setup mode, it's dangerous and it's fun at the same time. It's very flexible. You can adjust your character and place it in any pose you want, and you see that it's fully stretchable. You can adjust the rig. But right now what I'm doing is I'm not animating. I'm actually adjusting the rig. And a lot of people will start animating, and then if you turn on auto key and you go to frame 30, for example, and you start moving this around, you see that I didn't create any type of animation. It doesn't record the animation because I am in setup mode. So when you start and you're ready to start animate, just make sure that you go and you press this button and you go into animation mode. So right now I've messed up my rig, so I'm just going to do it again. I'm just going to grab cat parent and drag the I'm just going to make sure that I'm select the clown here, and we've got the clown again. Okay, motion panel. So when you want to start animating, like I said, you need to be in animation mode. If I press this button now, nothing's going to happen. The reason is here we have no layers of animation available to start animating. So before we start to animate, it's important to add a layer of animation. And to add a layer of animation, you go at the bottom here and you need to choose which type of layer you want to add. And there's different types. There's the absolute type, there's the adjustment local, adjustment world, and also the cat motion layer. And I'm going to talk about all of these a bit later in the video, but I'm going to start now with just an absolute layer. And an absolute layer is just an animation layer where the whole animation is recorded into this layer, and if I add more layers of animation, I will be able to record the whole animation as well. It's kind of a blank sheet of animation when you add an absolute layer of animation, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. But now that I've got an animation layer, I can adjust the color for that layer. So if I want that to be pure red, I'm just going to go here and say it's red. And it's going to be useful a bit later. We're going to see how to display the color inside of the viewport of that layer to see how the character is affected by all of those layers of animation. So now that we've got one animation layer, I can press this button and now I'm in animation mode. And what's going to happen now is that if I turn on auto key and I grab the hand here and I just place it at the beginning, I don't know, just like this, maybe just like that. And if I go to frame 30 and I want to move the hand in a different position, I'm just going to move it up, rotate it here like that. And if I have the end selected, you'll see that you've got the digit manager here. It's kind of a repository for all sorts of pose. So if I want to do a piece animation, just double click on it and you'll have the piece set up. And you can create as many end poses as you want for this. And what's great about this digit manager is that if I want to go back to end loose here, I select it and I can weight it to just say, well, it's just going to be a little bit looser, something like that. So now I've created an animation, so go back to here and I just go to that position. I've created an animation and it's all inside of this absolute animation layer. Let's say that I want to create another animation layer. I'm going to go back here, available, and I'm going to create a new absolute layer of animation. And this one here, I'm going to make it perfect green, like so. So now if I play the animation, I've created a blank sheet of animation, which means that my layer here is no longer visible in the viewport, which means, and it's something to understand about CAD animation, is that all of those layer animation are evaluated from top to bottom. So the first thing that is evaluated is this one here, and then we evaluate this one, and all of the others that will evaluate in that order from top to bottom. So what I'm doing now is that I'm doing this animation, but I'm overriding it with an absolute layer or blank sheet of animation with a completely new animation here. So what I'll do is I'll do exactly pretty much the same thing. I'll just do something like that. Actually, I'm going to go like this, and at frame 30, I'm just going to make the hand go up and just say hi to everybody, something like that. Just, hey, how are you? So now we got an animation of this, and it's this animation layer. If I turn off auto key now and I select this layer, you'll see that we've got the global weight, the local weight, and the time warp. I'm going to talk about the time warp a bit later. It's a concept that is present in all types of animation for 3ds Max, and it's very powerful because it allows you to kind of remap the time for an animation. But I'm not going to talk about it right now. What's important is the global weight and the local weight. The local weight is related to the group that is currently selected. So if I grab anything in the arm, I've selected the weight for that group. So if I just bring this layer, if I grab this group here, this is the group for this is the local weight. Here is the weight of the layer of animation for that group. If I grab the spine, it's going to be for the spine. If I grab the neck or the head, it's going to be for the head. And the local group for the legs will be for this leg or for this leg. So this is the idea for the local weight. The global weight is for the whole animation here. So if I reduce, you see that now it's set at 100%. So if I reduce this animation layer, you see that now we go back to 100% of that first layer of animation. So if I play the animation, you see that we go and say we do the peace sign. And if I go back here and I bring in the global weight for the other one, we're blending between the two layers. The reason is that this one now is taking 100% of the animation itself. But let's say that I want to have the two animations playing at the same time and they're not affected by the same local group. So this hand here is on a different local group or local weight than this one. So what I can do is say, well, I want this animation here to be 100%, but I'm going to grab the other end where I've created the other animation in layer number 1, and I'm going to reduce the local weight of this one to 0. So now what I've got is the two layers are kind of playing at the same time. And this one here, you see that animation layer for this group is set to 0, but if I grab any other group like this one here, you see that it's set to 100%. So I can continue to work on this animation here. And there's a really nice tool inside of CAT that I really like, and it's the, if you click here, you see that if I click, I've got two options. This option here is to show the regular wire color of the actual rig. Or if I click on layer here, what we see is the effect of the layers on the character itself, which means that right now you see that layer number 1 is red, it's visible here, it's affecting only this portion here. And if I just play the animation now, you see that the rest of the body is affected by animation layer number 2, well, the green one. So if I go back here and I say, and I grab this layer, and I grab this end here, and I increase the local weight, you see that now this layer is affecting this layer of animation is affecting the whole rig. If I reduce it down, you see that it's affecting the arm only. So let's say I want to create another layer of animation. So I'm going to go in available here. Be careful, because if you have an animation layer selected and you create an absolute layer, it's going to create it above it. So you can move the layers up and down by using those arrows here, and I'm going to bring it down at the bottom here. I'm going to make it yellow so it's purely different. And as you see now, it's an absolute layer, which means that I have now completely overwritten the anything that's above. So if I play the animation, you see that nothing is visible. So that's why this visual mode is quite interesting, because when you're trying to debug an animation or trying to see which layer is affecting your overall rig, you'll see in which animation layer it is. So what I'll do now is I'll just grab the IK chain here. I'll make sure that I have animation layer selected, and this and I'm in animation mode. I'm going to go in auto key mode, and let's say that I grab this and I just move it outside like that, kind of a dance kind of thing. Alright, so that's going to be my layer of animations. Now this is what I've done in terms of this layer of animation. If I just want to have this leg being affected by this animation layer, what I'll do is I'll grab this here and say the local layer will be 0. The local weight for this one will be this. The local weight for the spine, for the animation layer here will be 0. So I'm going to grab it here. So and grab this one here, set it to 0. This one here, set it to 0. And going to grab the rib cage, local weight to 0. And the head here, local weight to 0, which means that now you see that this animation layer, I was in auto key mode, so it's kind of I did animate the weight, which is possible as well. So now you can see that the overall rig is being colored by the animation layers that are influencing it. So that's kind of an introduction to the way that the animation system work. In the next video, I'm going to show you the differences between all of the layers of CAT. There's a use for every of them, so there's absolute layer, and I'm going to take a deeper look at that. But I hope that now you understand the idea that Layer Manager evaluates from top to bottom. You use this tool here to show the layer color, and you'll be able to see what's happening inside of all of the layers of animation. And you see that every layer has its local weight and global weight, and you can animate with that. So let's go in the next video to take a deeper look at the types of layers. Okay, now let's take a look at the different types of animation layers that we can create for CAT. So what I'll do is I'll just delete these two animation layers, and I'll delete this one to start from scratch. And as you can see, as soon as I don't have any more animation layers available, it automatically goes back to the setup mode. So I'll create an absolute layer, and we have an absolute, and it says here on the left absolute, and it's let's give it a color. Let's go back to red here, and that's going to be our absolute animation layer. If there's animation layers are the absolute animation layers are blank sheets of animation. So you can create one type of animation here, create another animation, an absolute animation layer here. I'm going to go in animation mode now to make sure that I'm not changing my setup pose. But right now, this is a blank sheet of animation. This is a blank sheet of animation. And what I can do now is blend between those two animation, and I can load animation layers into here. And we'll take a look on that a bit later. But you can blend in two animation clips that you've made on two animation layers by using this blank sheet of animation. So that's kind of cool for that. If I want to make any type of adjustment to an animation layer, let's say that we did motion capture, we have a lot of keyframes on an animation here on this animation layer. Let's say that I just go into auto key mode and I start the hand here. I'll just go at frame 30, move it forward like that, something like that. Then I'll go back here, rotate it back, and just go back into move here. So what I've done now is just a very simple animation of the hand walking from left to right, and I didn't take the time to adjust the weighting, not the weighting, but the timing correctly, so it's probably a bit slow, but you get the idea. So I've got this walk cycle or this hand movement or for this end, and I want to just adjust where it's going to be. So of course I don't want to go and adjust all of the keyframes. I want to adjust the animation layer itself. So I can go into the available slot here, and I can create a local local adjustment layer or a world adjustment layer. And basically, most of the time you will want to choose a world adjustment layer. So if you don't understand after this video the difference between local and world, just grab the world one, and it's going to behave like you want it to be. So if I go back here to the world adjustment layer, and I just move this, I don't know, maybe a bit higher like that, what's going to happen now is that you see that I still have my movement, but it's offset in space. I can also just adjust the rotation, and now what I've got is exactly the same movement with a world adjustment. So basically, adjustment layer are animation offset that are applied on top of the absolute layer. If I go back here in the available slot and I adjust again, I can create another world adjustment. I can say, well, I want that to be like this and like that. So now what I've got is two offset on the overall animation, and I can blend in the effect of the world layer like that, of the world adjustment layer, to have my final offset available to me based on the first animation layer. So I hope it's clear for the adjustment layer. So it's an adjustment world, and there's also adjustment local, and it's a bit different. The way that you use the world and the local on most of the character, you're going to use the world. And if you go on to the and I'll just delete those two here to show you the idea. If I grab any IK effector or IK goal inside of the rig, I can use local and world. I can use local and world adjustment layer. So if I go, just to give you the idea, and I'm gonna explain it to you the way that it was explained to me. I thought it made a lot of sense. So let's just grab a point helper here, and I'll create another one, and I'll make this one a box so we can see the difference between the two. Oops. Just make this one a box so we can see the difference between the two. I'm going to align both of them using the align tool, pivot to pivot, in position, rotation, and also in orientation. And I'm going to link this box to the central there. So what I've got now is if I grab this object here and I move it around or rotate it, you'll see that the box is moving with it exactly the same way. So if I move this away, because this is the parent, now you see that it's moving like that. So what I did is I took this box and I move it into its locals, or it's in parent space. So I basically took the local modification compared to this parent here, and now when I rotate, you see that the box is rotating around that point. So this is the difference between if I take this box here and rotate it, you see that I'm rotating around itself, and if I grab the parent, I'm rotating it around the parent. So basically, that's the difference between a local and a world layer. I'll show you the difference. I'll delete that here, and I'll delete this, and I'll grab an IK effector here, an IK goal, sorry. So it has to be an IK target. So if you grab an IK target here, you'll see that this is the IK target for that leg. So if I go into the animation layer, and I'm just going to trash this one here, and I'm going to create an animation layer. I'm going to grab the IK here, and I'm just going to drag it forward like that. So this is the movement, or it's not a movement, but I've just moved it forward into that position here. Now if I go and I put a world adjustment layer, I can grab this feet and rotate it, and you see that it rotates around this this point here, which is good. But now if I go back to the animation layer here and I rotate it again, it still rotates around its local pivot point. Well, it still revolves around this here. If I just turn this one off, I'm just going to trash it, and I'm going to add, oops, leave it like that. I'm going to add a local transformation. So the local transformation, let's say that I move this again in that direction here, like that. And now if I go back to the animation layer here, the major animation layer, if I rotate the feet here, you see that it's going to rotate around its kind of original pivot point. So basically, when you add a local layer, it's kind of, if you're moving in local space, or if you can, I think local is you're moving locally in this animation space. So when you go back to that animation and you orbit here, or you rotate here, you see that it's rotating around that point that was set up around the animation layer. So I'm going to trash that again and do it in world space. So if I go here and say adjustment world, and I move it to the side like I did before. Now if I grab this animation layer and I rotate it, you'll see that it's rotating around this local pivot point here. So it's kind of it's the idea between the difference between the two. So I hopefully you get that difference. My way of understanding it is that most of the time when I want to create adjustment, I just go into world adjustment, and it gives me much better flexibility. You see the world here is an adjustment to nothing, so always remember that it evaluates from top to bottom. So this here is in the wrong place, so I'm going to move it down below the absolute layer. So this is now a world an adjustment to the world layer. So I hope it's clear. Okay, let's go back to animation type, and the last animation type, animation layer type that I want to talk about is the cat motion, which is this running guy here. The cat motion, and I'm going to go a bit more in details in the next video about that, is a procedural walk cycle tool. So when you add a motion layer, it's also a blank sheet of paper, blank sheet of animation, sorry, like a blank sheet of paper where you start from scratch. So if I just play this here, you see that we've got this procedural walk cycle that can be fully configured and animated the way that you want it. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to do it in the next video, a full in-depth overview of cat motion. But cat motion gives you this procedural walk cycle. It's a blank sheet of animation. So if I go back here and I say put it to red, so now our original animation layer here is blue. So I'm going to go back to the motion layer here and just set its global weight to 0, show you the animation layers color. So let's say that we want to start with, we've got 0 animation here for the cat motion. I'm going to grab that here, say, well, I want you to move up like that, and just move, yeah, something like that. And I grab the spine here, and actually I'm going to grab the rib cage, move it forward, kind of getting ready to start to walk. So this guy's getting ready to start walking. So that's going to be my start position. And I want to start to blend in the cat motion. I'm just going to turn on auto key and say cat motion. At the beginning I want that to be 0. So I'm just going to set it to 0 here. And then at frame 30, I want the global weight of the cat layer here to be 100. So now what I've got is going from 0 to 100, and as you can see, it starts from this position, and then the guy starts walking with the cat motion layer like that. Okay, so that's the type of animation layers that you can get inside of CAT. One other thing I want to mention is here you see all of those keyframes that are related to the cat motion layer. And if I grab here, you see that you've got no keyframes at all. So basically what you see at the bottom is the current layer animation. And the cat motion layer, all of those keyframes are related to the cat motion parameter that allows you to create that procedural walk cycle. But if I go back to the, I'm going to go to the I want to go to the top of the layer manager here. Oh, actually, no, that's right. That's not where it is. You have to go in on the parent itself, and on the parent itself, you see that you've got the track display. And the track display allows you to define: do you want to see the keyframes for the active layer, for all of the contributing layer, or all of the layers? So when you select any limbs here, you see that now you see all of those keyframes. When this one is selected, you see all of the keyframes available. So you can define if you want to see the keyframes. The keys here for the active layer, contributing layer, or all of the layers. So that's it's usually at the active layer. When you work on the layer, you just want to see the keyframes. Otherwise, it's a lot of keyframes. But when you're in debugging mode, or if you want to see all of the keyframes, you can adjust that here to be able to see that. So just a quick parenthesis on that. So let's jump into cat motion in the next video. Alright, in this video we're going to take a deep look at cat motion, which is one of my favorite parts of the cat animation system because it creates procedural walk cycles with attitude, and it's pretty flexible, and you'll have a lot of fun with it, I am sure. So it's basically the core of cat. This is where you can create the start for any type of animation, basically the walk cycle. So when you go into the rig itself, you have to make sure that you go into animation mode. So right now I have no layers set up for this rig, so for this character. So I need to adjust and add a layer of animation. I'm not going to use the absolute, the local, or the world adjustment. I'm just going to use the last one here at the bottom, which is this running man. And as soon as you click on it, it creates a cat motion layer. I'm just going to make that cat motion layer kind of green, like so. And I'm going to jump into animation mode. I can adjust the color of the layer to see which layer is affecting. Right now I only have this green one, and it's affecting the whole character. And as soon as you're done, you just press play, and you've got this procedural walk cycle. It's a loopable walk cycle. You see that it walks on multiple frames, and if you've got a 200 and 300 frames animation, it's going to walk over that period of time. And you'll see how you can adjust all of this and how you can play with that. All of the cat motion settings are located here in this cat motion interface. So if I click on it, you bring up that window, and what's great about it is that you can work in context of the animation, which means that you can play the animation, let it loop, and you can adjust all of these settings in cat motion. The cat motion settings are there to adjust the walk cycle. If you go at the top list here where it says cat motion presets, you'll see that I've got two animation presets here. Actually, I've got one and a folder, and this is the casual walk. This is what's come with it, and it's set on layer 1. Something to notice is that you've got layers here and you've got layers there. Within a cat motion layer, you can have multiple layers of cat motion, which means this is kind of you're working on your character, and you can add an absolute layer, an adjustment layer, and you can adjust all of these and by compiling them on top of each other. Within a cat motion, the layers here affect the settings that are here, so you can blend between different types of attitude for your walk cycles. For example, here I've got the casual walk. If I add a new one, I'm just going to double click here, and I want to add a run. I'm going to double click on it. It's going to ask me, do you want to put it in the new layer or into the existing layer? I'm going to say load it into a new layer, and you see that now I've got this character running. So this is still a walk cycle. This is still part of my cat motion layer, but now I've got two layers of settings that I can blend between. So if I go back here and I say, well, I want that to be 50%, you see that it's going to be a blend between walking casually and the running. If I go back to 0 here, now my character walks back. So I can make the character, if I want to animate this, so let's say I want the character, I'm going to go in auto key mode. I want the character to be walking here, so I'm just going to set it to 0.01 and set it to 0. So now I'm sure that it's 0 from, this as a 0 influence from 0 to frame 50. And then at frame 80, I want that to be running. So what I've got now is my character will be walking, and then he's going to start running as it blends in. And you can see that it starts running at this point here slowly and then going into running. So this is and you can have as many layers of animation or layers of cat motion within the this cat motion layer. And what you can do as well is that you can create multiple cat motion layers and blend between all of them. So the difference between blending here is that here you're blending the transformation, and here you're blending those parameters that you're setting up here. So that's the difference between the two. So I'm going to trash this one now. I'm going to come back to it a bit later. I'm going to go back to just the character walking, and I'm going to delete those keyframes here like that. So what we have now is just a character walking. And what I want to show you is some of the settings. So I'm going to go into globals first. This is the step time. This is the stride length. You got the velocity, and all of these are related to each other. So which means that if now this character is walking at this speed, if I want the character to walk a bit faster, I'll just reduce the step time. And you see that here the velocity is kind of increasing as well. I can set up the velocity. The velocity, sorry, is a frozen parameter, but it gives you an idea of the speed of the overall character. So if I want that to be a bit slower, you can do that as well. I don't remember the original value, so let's say 25. And the strength here is the distance or the size of the. So if I reduce this here, you'll see that it's going to walk more a smaller step like that. Reduce that. See, it is almost like in position. If I put 0, it's just dancing on it on the single position. So let's go back. I don't remember. I should notice those values before. So let's go to 125. That seems reasonable. And now you see that the legs are moving forward and backward. So those are the global settings. And I'll come back to those a bit later. The limb phase are going to be very important as well. The limb phase are defining when the motion is happening for the hands and the feet. So if I grab here, you see that this character has 2 legs and 2 arms. If I had a centipede, I would have all of the legs listed here, and I can adjust the synchronization of them. Basically, now you can see that the left leg and the right arm are synchronized together, and the right leg and the left arm are synchronized together. Let's say I want to synchronize the 2 legs together to kind of create a jump movement. So if I just go here and grab that here, you see that now the 2 legs are exactly the same timing inside of the loopable animation. So if I go back here, you'll get the regular motion. Same thing for the arms. If I want to synchronize both of them, I can just bring this one here, and now you see that the two arms are synchronized together. If I want to have a little bit of offset between the two, you can adjust that this way, and now you got a little offset between the two. So those are the limb phases. What you can do as well is if I go into the any of the groups, and that's where the naming convention will be super important, because I'm just going to stop it here so I can easily select. If I grab the pelvis, you see that it's named pelvis. If I grab the rib cage, you can see that it's named rib cage. Grab the head, it's named head, and all of these are very easy identifiable. If I did name this leg 1, leg 2, arm 1, arm 2, spine 1, hub 1, hub 2, you know, it's hard to kind of see what's happening here. You're going to get all of the limbs that you're going to be creating, all of the groups that you'll be created will be listed here, so that you can adjust the motion. And that's true for any type of rig, even the one that you create yourself. It's all going to be created automatically for you with the proper naming here. So if I go back to play, and I want to adjust I'm going to go back here into the limb, just make it, I want that to be synchronized like this. Yeah, something like that would be good. Okay, here we go. So we're happy with that. I'm going to go to the pelvis here, and you see that the character is kind of having a lot of weight shift. So as soon as you open the pelvis settings here, you'll see that you got the twist, you got the roll, you got the pitch, and you've got an animation curve which is fully loopable because the end key and the start key are exactly at the same position. It's fully loopable, and that's the beauty of it. If I start to change any type of key, if I grab keys and I try to change that, the loopable might be broken. But you cannot add or remove keys. They're all there by default. You can change their value, you can change the scale, but the overall loopable animation is there by default and can be preserved. So it's made so that you don't make too much mistakes with it. So now you see that the weight shift is very important. So I can grab a keyframe here and move it down, and now you see that there's kind of a little motion there. I don't like that, so I'm going to go back to, I'm just going to undo it. What my recommendation to do this is that instead of trying to change it, just change the scale. So if you grab the scale here, you see that I can remove the weight shift much easier than if I go keyframe by keyframe. So the overall scale, if I want to make it like super exaggerated, I'm going to scale it super high. So now you see that the weight shift is like way too important, but maybe that's what you want to do. But by placing the scale here, you can also offset if you want to. So you just offset here, and you can offset, and it's still loopable like so. I'm going to undo this, and I'm just going to reduce the weight shift so that it's very, very limited. I can also adjust the twist and the roll. So the twist here is very strong, so I'm going to reduce that to a very subtle movement, and the roll as well, I'm going to reduce that to a very subtle movement. So now this character is much more lazy when he walks. And also there's the lift where he's just jumping back and forth, so I'm going to reduce that. And now it's like way more lazy or stable when he walks, but it's almost unnatural, so I'm going to increase that a little bit more until I'm happy with the motion of the pelvis there. So when you adjust the pelvis, you can adjust the legs in exactly the same way. You can adjust the knee angle, the twists, you know, the swing, all of this you can adjust that. And I'm not going to go in detail of everything, but what I recommend is that you open up a motion cycle like this and you play with it until you get exactly what you want, and experiment with it to see the subtleties of all of these. If I want the head to be twisting a little bit less, I'm going to go here and reduce the scale of that twist, and also for that roll. And now I've got a much more subtle, and also the lift here. I'm going to reduce that, and maybe the pitch, the push, like so, and the weight shifts, and all of this. So I'm going to reduce that so we can get less motion. Here we go. So now we got less motion on the head, and I'm happy with that. I can also adjust all of the the arms and all of that. But I want to keep it short. So let's go back to the actual globals that are kind of cool. So if I want to work on and actually I'm going to just stop the video and start a new one here, but what I want to do is I want to go and I want to make this character. Right now he's walking on spot as it's set here, but I want to show you the various options to make the character walk on a path and all of that. So I'm just going to stop it there and start a new video for the show you the walk types you can have. Alright, so let's continue from there. So we've seen how to adjust the motion presets and all of that. You've seen how you can blend layers of settings for that, and you can create different walk cycles. Now we're going to take a look at how to make the character walk inside of your scene. Right now he's walking on spot. It's a great way to develop the attitude of your character, to define how you want him to walk and all of that. So once you're happy with that, you can start to say how you want it to walk in your scene. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to go back to the motion preset, and I'm going to go back here and just add the character run, load into a new layer, and I'll go back to the animation that I had at the beginning, where I'm just going to go auto key mode for the weight, say that to 0 here, and at frame 50 I'm going to make it 100. So it's going to walk at the beginning, and actually, you know what, I want to go to frame, oh, I think I didn't record it, so 100. So now we have going from 0, and I'm just going to make it up to frame 20 where it says 0, and now we got walking and then starts to run. And I want that to continue. I want that to be 100 here. So it's going to, yeah, that's good. Okay, so now what we've got is character walking and then starts to run and runs until the end. When you go to the globals, he's now doing this, he or she, but that's, yeah, let's assume it's a he. So he's walking on spot. If I turn on walk online, automatically the footsteps or the I'm going to zoom out so you can see. If I play this, he's going to walk, and then it's going to start running, and all. You see the motion is set so that you don't have any type of sliding on the ground as he's changing his motion. So this all blending perfectly just by blending the two layers of animation. So everything you're doing in the layers here, that's the beauty of it, is that you don't have to, even if you have multiple, if you did add multiple layers here, there's no intelligence between a cat motion layer here and a cat motion layer there, or an absolute layer. But within the cat motion itself, because you're blending layers here, all of these footsteps will be set up correctly for you, and you'll get a good non-sliding character doing exactly what you want inside of the scene. So let's go back here. You see that you can walk online, and there's another tool called Path Node. And what I'll do is I'll just add a helper inside of the scene. Actually, just go back here into standard helper. Just put a point helper, and this point helper will be my path node. So if I go back to the motion panel, not the motion panel, but a cat motion, what I want to do is I want the character to always follow that node here. So I'm going to go here, say path node, and click and select this guy. Now you see that walk on path node, and the path node is set to 0.1. And the orientation will be very important. Now the character is walking on spot. So I will need to rotate, and I'm just going to turn on the snap to angle, and I'm going to rotate it about 90 degrees, so it's running like this, and I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees, oops, 180, so that is going in the right direction. So now if I go back here and I play the animation, you'll see that he's walking on spot, and then he starts to run on spot, but it's not that interesting because this point is no longer moving. So what I'll do now is I'll just zoom out. I'm trying to work at this resolution. I'm going to close it, and we're going to come back to it. So if I grab the actual point and I move it in space, let's say that I move it here, and I go in auto key mode, I say, well, at the beginning I want the character to be facing this direction. Then I'm going to go at frame 50, and I want the character to be somewhere like here, and just rotate it in that direction like that. Whoop, not that much. And then at the end, I want the character to be somewhere like here. And you see that the footsteps are all created for you, and the character is going to run, and again the sliding is going to be avoided. So if it's running, and you see that the position is kind of, so I could adjust. So for this guy here, I could go into the curve editor and adjust the way that it goes through the go here and just make it a bit more like that, and like that as well. It's hard to work at this resolution, but anyway, so we get the idea that the character is non-sliding and moving from one spot to the other. So you can pretty much adjust and make auto keys with this node here. You can place it anywhere in your scene, and your character is going to follow exactly what you want it to do. You kind of give it orders or where you want it to be. And you see that here you got some adjustment that are kind of stretching, because so if I go back to my cat motion, so and that's going to happen quite a lot. So if I go back to my cat motion panel here, I can go in the limb phase here, and it says reset. So if I go reset, it's going to reset your walk cycle to get better interpolation between all of these. Of course, now I'm just asking it to move way too much at the beginning here, so I would need to adjust that, but that's fine with it for now. So what I can do as well is, and it's actually a max feature, it's not a cat feature, but it's going to be interpolated by cat. If I take this path node, I can create a, I'm just going to create a line on the ground here. Let's say I'm doing something like that. Not too long, but something like that. I'm going to control A, and I'm going to make that all smooth. I've created a smooth line, and now what I can do is grab the actual point helper and say animation, constraint, path constraint, and constrain it to that path. So now it's fully constrained to the path, so it's going to be animated like this, and you see that the character is trying to follow. Now it's way too fast. What I'll do is I'll just go and I'll adjust the time, maybe to 200, so that it's a bit slower, and I'm going to grab the I'm going to delete all of the keyframes here and have the go from 0% at the beginning to 100% at the end. So now I've got, and here you see that it stops at 100, and that's something that I want to mention here, is that if I go to the cat motion panel, global presets here, if I see that the cat motion range goes from 0 to 100, if I want to create a 200 framed animation, I'm going to say 200, and now what we're going to get is the motion of the character for the full animation. So it's going to start, and then it's going to start running and try to stay with those footsteps that are kind of like this. Okay, you see that the character is now pointing always in the direction of the point helper. That's not a cat thing, but the cat will always try to move, and that's kind of interesting, is that if you go a bit closer here, you see that the character is always pointing even if he's trying to keep in the footsteps, and you see that he's kind of crossing his leg. He tries to go into that direction. Now he walks backward or run backwards, and then he goes forward. So this is a motion that you can do. That's not a problem. But if I want this to follow the direction where he's going, I just need to grab the actual point helper here in the motion panel, go into the path parameters and just make it follow. And of course, when you set it to follow, you need to define the correct axis. I'm going to rotate this guy here in the proper direction, like that. And now what I've got is the point helper following, and he's going in the right direction, like that. Okay, so that's just by using, I'm going to grab the cat character again, cat motion panel. That's just by going into the globals here and making the guy follow a path node, and that could be any node you want. You animate this node, it's always going to follow it. So no matter how you rig that node, it's always going to follow, it's always going to follow that path node. One of the other things that are really interesting about this cat motion is you can also define a ground, and it will always follow the ground itself. So even if you've got a path here that defines in the top view, you see that this is the direction that the guy will follow. You can also create a ground, and the ground will always be followed by the character. So let's say, for example, I go into create a plane. That's kind of the obvious example, but I'm just going to make 50 by 50 segments. And I'm going to add a noise modifier to this. Noise here. And we're going to scale it in Z here, or Z, like that. And I'm going to reduce the scale of all this. Increase the scale so we get some nice deformation. So you see we've got mountains here. And if the guy walks here, you see that he's going through the mountains. Not that interesting. But what I can do is go back to my cat character. Grab the head, for example, go to the motion panel, cat motion, and in the globals here, the limb phases, I can go and say pick ground, and as soon as you pick the ground, you see that all the footsteps are now following the ground. Close that here, and now you can play, and the character will be running. And of course, you will need to define, maybe readjust certain footsteps here and there, but you get the guy walking on the ground. See that he's going up, then going down, and all of that. So if you got stairs to follow or things like that, you just pick the ground as long as it's one object. So if you want to have the character walk upstairs, just make sure that the stairs are and he kind of goes through the ground here because one of the footsteps is a bit lower. Probably that's actually is because of this one. So maybe what I can do as well here is add some kind of adjustment layer, or just a world adjustment layer, and now I can grab the leg here and say I want that at this point to be a bit higher, and this one here a bit higher as well, and go back here to 0, and things like that. Okay, I got distracted a little bit in when I was doing the feet adjustment, so I forgot to mention one important thing about cat motion. And let's go back here, and I'll just create my my cat object again, and create a cat parent, and we'll just use the clown to start with, like so. And it's a bit big, so I'm going to reduce the size here compared to my overall scene. So now we've got our cat layer, our cat rig. So I'm going to go and add a cat motion, go into walk cycle mode, go into the cat here, and I'm going to go into the globals and say path node, and I don't have a path node yet, so I'm just going to go back and create. I started from a blank screen because I realized that I forgot something. So let's go into the standard helper, just put a point helper. Not too big. Here we go, and just animation constraint, path constraint, follow that path, and of course follow. So now I'm ready to grab this guy and say follow this path node, and I'm going to just rotate it in the right direction. Oops, 90 degrees, where's that guy? So 90 degrees local, 90 degrees up like that, and 90 degrees forward. And I'm going to make this animation 200 frames and make sure that we go here to 200 frames and make sure that the 100% of that path animation on the path is set to here. So now what I've got is this character will be walking on the path there. So this is what we've seen before. If I want to follow the ground, again, I go to the cat motion panel, grab the cat here, cat motion panel, and just go into the limb phase and pick the ground, and now the guy is going to follow the ground up and down like that. So what I want to show you, and this is the item that I forgot, I'm just going to pause it. So I'm just going to pause the animation here, go back. I'm going to delete this rig, and I'm going to create a completely new one, cat parent. And now instead of using the clown, I'm going to use the centipede. Here we go. So, and I'm going to just grab this and put it about like that inside of the scene. So for the centipede, I'm going to again create a cat motion layer, go in cat motion, and this is the cat motion for that centipede so far. So it's a bit big. Just go back to the rig itself. Actually, it's already set up, so I'm just going to go back to the setup mode and grab the parent node here. Actually, I'm going to trash the motion layer. Go to the scale here. I'm going to make it just a bit smaller so that it's going to give us a better animation. Okay, let's go back here, create the motion with the cat motion, and this is what we get so far in terms of animation. Go a bit closer. This is what we get. So again, cat motion. I'm going to go to the global. I'm going to say grab this path node, and I'm going to pick the ground as well. And now we're going to have the follow the ground. So if I play this now, you'll see that this is following the ground like that. And where it breaks, or where it's a bit less interesting, and when you get into those areas, here's where you get very strong curves. You see that it's trying to keep its shape, and it's trying to rotate here, and it's always stays straight. And that's a parameter that you can adjust in the cat motion. You'll see that here there's a tool called Preserve Character Shape. So if I make that to 0 here, you'll see that when we're going to update this, you see that when it's going to come to the corner here, it's turning on itself, it's changing its shape to try to follow the path as much as it can. So even if you go and you get those area there, the insect is kind of curving on itself like it should be doing, especially in areas like this. You'll see that the actual centipede is turning on itself to follow the motion like that. So it's a preserve shape again. Go here into the the globals. At the bottom here it says preserve characters shape, so just make it to 0, and if you've got a quadruped or a centipede or things like that, you'll be able to so I'm just going to move that to the side and play the final animation of this guy just going around and follow. Okay, what I want to talk about in this video is a very interesting feature of CAT called the target IK. And basically when you select, I'm just going to create an absolute layer to start with and go in animation mode. If I grab any of the limbs like the arms here, you see that there's an IK system. Same thing for the leg, and you see that it's set up differently for the leg than the arm. When you create the leg by default, it automatically assigns an IK target, which is this kind of this footprint here that I can grab and I can move around. You see that it's separate from the foot itself, and if the foot I rotate it, it's the end of my chain, and I can still affect the whole chain like an IK, and I can still grab the leg itself and do the forward rotation and all of that. So it's a system where you've got the leg itself that ends here with the limb, which is the foot, and it's the it's the end of the limb and it's the foot, and there's also the IK target, which is here. By default it's like that for the leg, but if you look at the arm here, you see that I can grab the hand and move it around like so, and but I can also create an IK target. So I'm going to go and create this IK target, and it creates this helper inside of the scene here, and I'm going to move it away so we can see. And this IK target is separate from the solver the arm itself. So if I still have the IK chain here, I still have the I'm just going to grab it here, and still have the FK, so I can move this around if I want to rotate it. I can rotate it. So I've got the full IK and FK blend, FK rig for my arm, but I've got this helper here on top of that, and this helper is defined, or the reach, the hand will try to reach this helper based on the IK FK slider here. So now it's set to FK, which is basically the cat solver. And if I just bring this here, you see that it's going to try to reach that point here as much as it can. So as I move this point around, you see that the hand has been driven by it. It doesn't, if I go back to FK, I can go back and grab the hand and still be an IK, even if it's a separate IK chain. So basically you've got the end limb and you've got the IK, and both of them are, this is a first IK solver, and then we've got the second IK solver there that tries to reach, that the hand tries to reach. The reason why this is this way is that you can animate using the regular cat tools, and then you can blend and have the hand reach for this this target here. So let's say, for example, that I want the character to hold an object in its hand. I'll use the IK target that I'll position on the object, and then I'll just make the character goes and reach that object. So let's do that now. And what I'll do is I'll just create a sphere, and that's going to be a kind of a balloon that I want my character to hold in its hands. I'm just going to place it like so. And another thing that I want to mention is that when you select the limb itself and you go to the motion panel, you see that in the tools here you got the tool called Select IK Target, so it automatically selects that object. If I click here and select limb end, it's going to select the hand, which is the end of the arm IK-FK chain that cat is solving. So if I go back here and say select IK, it will select it. And there's a nice tool here called Move IK Target to Palm. So if I move that in position, it's going to match the IK and the FK. So if I try to move the IK and FK solver slider, sorry, you see that it just stays exactly in the same position. So it's great for when this is exactly in the same place. You just go into IK, and now I can grab this and rotate the end and place it exactly where I want it to be for holding this this ball there, like that, this balloon, like that, and I'm just going to place it like so, rotate it a bit more. So now I'm just placing the IK chain, or the IK target, sorry, and if I go back to the FK, it goes back to where it was at the beginning. So now it's going to try to reach that balloon like so. So I can do the same thing for the other arm. So I want to exactly the same thing. I'm going to grab the arm. By default, it doesn't have the IK target. So I'm going to create the IK target. I'm going to select that IK target, and I'm going to make sure that this slider is here to full IK. And I'm just going to move the IK and make sure that you don't select the end itself, but the actual IK target. And I'm just going to move that one in position like so. Just move it a bit forward like that, and now it holds the balloon. So the IK target are in position, but if I grab this balloon and move it around, it doesn't follow. So what I'll do, and that's what one of the great thing of cat is that all of the if I grab the cat rig again, all of the animation layers here have their own controller. So let's say that it's my setup pose, and I'm going to call that here, I'm going to create a new layer of animation, another absolute layer of animation, and I'm going to call that hold balloon. Whoops, hold balloon. And that's going to be my layer where I'm going to link the IK target to this. And because it's a separate layer, you'll see that if you take a look, if I grab the, I'm going to go here and select the IK target, you'll see that in the assign controller, you see that now I've got my animation layer here, and I've got the new one here called old balloon, and it has its own position rotation scale. So what I'll do is I'll select this, and I'll change that for a link constraint, which is a constraint in 3ds Max. Now the whole balloon layer has this constraint, and I'll say add link and just connect to that. So now what's happening is that on that layer of animation, if I move the balloon, you see that the hand is following. If I go back here and I set that layer weight to 0, you see that if I move the balloon now, it doesn't follow because the IK, the target here is linked using a link constraint. So I'm going to go back here, select the IK target, and just make sure that we set to 100% here for the global layer. And I'll do the same thing for the other arm. I'll select the IK target. I'll go into assign controller, I'll make sure that the old balloon transformation layer here, this one here, pivot transformation, I'm going to change that to link constraint. And in the link constraint here, I'm just going to say add link and connect to that balloon. So now on that layer of animation, I can grab the actual balloon, and you'll see that both hands will be following this high K target. And if I just move this up like so, and I go back to my rig here, and I just reduce the balloon effect, you'll see that it's going back to its original. And even so, if I grab the IK here, whoops, the IK target here, come on, I can reduce and go back to the FK chain if I want to. So that's the idea here. So let's go back to our full FK and grab the I'm just going to go back to full IK here, to the full effect of that layer, because I know that on that layer I'll just be affecting the way that the character hands the balloon. What I could do is grab this here, grab the whole character, go into animation contribution, select that first layer, and just make it pure red. And the second layer here, we'll leave it to blue, and we'll leave the global weight to 100%, but all of the layers that are not affected by this strain, I'm just going to put them to 0 so that I can see that this layer is only working on. So I'm going to grab the pelvis here, global weight to 0, the hub here, global weight to 0, same thing for the head here, global weight to 0. So now I can see that this here, this layer itself will affect the arms, and it's set to 100% for the arms, so I can move this target around. And you see that this is the effect. The reason why I want to show you this is that now what I'll do is I'll show you the if I go back here and I just grab the spine here, I'm just going to grab the pelvis, going to make it back to 100% and 100% so that this layer does influence the whole upper body. So now it doesn't change much for this, but if I go back to the hand here, to the arm here, you see that the last slider at the bottom here is called retargeting. So if I just bring that forward here to 100% and grab that one here to 100% as well, what's going to happen now is that if I grab the balloon and I move it around, you'll see that the whole body will try to follow it. So basically, it's going starting from the pelvis here to up, and it's trying to keep the balloon in its hand. And if I go down like this, you see it tries the whole body, or the whole body starting from the pelvis follows up for that motion. So that's what we call the retargeting. It allows you to retarget the motion for this whole character so that the balloon is always so within reach. Of course, when you're fully extended, it can no longer reach it, but it's a nice way to animate with this system. So basically what we've seen now is the IK-FK, how you can connect it to a balloon like this, to an object like this, and have the full body follow. If you don't want to have the full body to follow, go back to the select IK here, just turn off the retargeting, do the same thing for the other limb here, retargeting to off, and now if you move the balloon around, it's going to only have the arm follow that balloon. So that's the idea. So in the next video, I'm going to use the same tool to show you a couple of things that you can do with animation using that same technique of the IK constraint, the IK target, sorry.